Russia killed a 7-year-old boy in Zaporizhzhya. Putin admitted that a Russian missile shot down the passenger plane. At the same time, the Kremlin continues to mistreat residents of the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine. My name is Albina Pidhirnyak. Here are this week's news for you. As a result of night's combined strike on Zaporizhzhya, 11 people were injured. The Russian attack took the life of a child. The father of the killed boy had defended Mariupol and had only recently returned from the enemy captivity.
My daughter-in-law called at 2:22 a.m. that there was an attack on their house. Everything was on fire. That her husband's brother was taken away by the 9th. We don't know if his legs will be saved or not. I say 3 years in captivity so that someone would die here at home. The boy was not saved in the hospital. He was 7 years old. She herself has bruised calves, a slight crack.
Meanwhile, the day before Putin met with Azerbaijani President Aliyev, their relations worsened, I remind you, after Russia shot down an Azerbaijani plane. Aliyev wanted a direct apology from Putin. He didn't receive one, but at the meeting, Putin admitted that it was indeed a Russian missile that shot down the plane. He shifted responsibility by claiming the missile was at the moment targeting a Ukrainian drone. But then the question arises, why wasn't the airspace closed in the area of the incident? Let's listen to what the Russian dictator said.
Ukrainian drone. We drove 3 such drones at once, which crossed the border of the Russian Federation at night on the day of the tragedy. And the second reason is technical failures of the Russian air defense system itself. And the 2 missiles that were fired, they did not hit the plane directly. If this had happened, the plane would have crashed on the spot, and the explosions may have been self-destruct, a few meters away, about 10 meters away. And therefore, the damage occurred, but mainly not by striking combat elements, but most likely by fragments of the missiles themselves. That is why the pilot perceived it as a collision with a flock of birds, which he reported to Russian air traffic controllers. And all this is recorded in the so-called black boxes. He was also offered, and this is also in black boxes, well and audibly, to land in Makhachkala. But he decided to return to his home airport and then to Kazakhstan. But less so, the fact remains. I just told you the reasons for the tragedy. All this is in the documents. After a thorough analysis of the technical characteristics of what was happening and checking the results of this so-called black box right by second. But we also discussed this topic with you later. Of course, everything that is needed in such cases, in such tragic cases, will be done with the Russian side regarding compensation, and a legal assessment of all officials, the actions of all officials will be given. Yes.
Meanwhile, Medvedev was sent into exile, or rather to North Korea. There he gave a speech openly admitting that the North Korean soldiers had fought against Ukraine, and he thanked Kim Jong-un for their cooperation.
The true nature of relations between people and between countries is manifested in times of trial. This fully applies to the alliance of our countries. We are grateful to the Democratic People's Republic of Korea for its strong support for the special military operation. Our fighters liberated the Kursk region shoulder to shoulder. This feat will forever remain in our hearts.
Yesterday, the European Parliament proposed giving Ukraine the ability to strike targets inside Russia without limits. This refers to long-range weapons. People in Russia are really afraid of such a development. In particular, on his show, the propagandist Solovyov again threatened that Russia would allegedly use nuclear weapon if Ukraine is given Tomahawks.
Isn't Tomahawk a nuclear weapons carrier? At the same time, unlike the F-16, which can carry missiles with a special charge, the Tomahawk is already the very rocket, the launch of which definitely, well, let's put it this way, sharply increases the probability. How can we know what kind of warhead is there? Therefore, by the very fact of launch, in theory, since this is a strategic weapon, our nuclear doctrine of retaliatory counterstrike is activated. Think so? Humanity will cease to exist at this point. I guess, but we will go to heaven, and they will just die. But of course, Now we have people who say, well, listen, well, but to hell with her, with Ryazan. Well, Europe will live America. Well, is that so? They're wrong. Well, is this a reason to? This is not a reason. This is inevitable. Why such a world in which there will be no Russia?
Former Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba posted a video on his Instagram where he clearly explained how Putin will act next and whether he can fight two wars at the same time. Dmytro Kuleba is convinced that yes, but this will be wars of different intensity.
Will there be a war on the territory of the European Union? My answer is as follows. If everything moves in America, in Europe, in Ukraine and in Russia the way it is currently moving, then Putin will attack. It will attack one of the EU countries and, accordingly, one of the NATO countries. But you don't need to look at it apocalyptic from the point of view of the consequences for Ukraine. Ukraine will continue to fight anyway. In any case, Ukraine will enjoy support, even more. Therefore, the main thing now is to strengthen yourself from the inside, become more effective and stronger. And in order to be able to defend yourself. And then, as they say, how the historical map will lie. The second question that is asked. Will Putin go against an EU country after he stops in Ukraine? Is he capable of waging two wars in parallel? I believe that he is capable of waging two wars in parallel, but wars of different intensity. To have such a war in Ukraine of such intensity and somewhere else of the same intensity, he is not capable of this now. But he can shoot drones in any direction, and he is also capable of allocating a division for ground combat operations. And such a local conflict will protect him, in fact, from, and, say, an unacceptable escalation. Well, in human language, I am alluding to nuclear escalation, because no one will respond with nuclear weapons to the actions of conventional armed forces. This must be taken into account, because earlier the analysis was that he should first end in Ukraine, and as long as the war continues in Ukraine, he will not do anything in Europe. Given the increase in the production of weapons, and, unfortunately, it will be able to move along parallel tracks. But I emphasize once again that these will be wars of completely different intensity. However, Putin will fight until the end of his days. Obviously, these days will coincide with his last days on Earth. Why? Because it's just very convenient for him to actually lead the country in a state of war. But once again, I emphasize again, we should not be afraid of any development of events. If we have inner strength and we are capable of having it, it depends on us.
Next, I will show you how the regions of Ukraine occupied by Russia are living now. Donetsk, which was once a modern and developing city, is now simply neglected by the occupiers. After seizing the territory, they are only mistreating the people who live there. There has been no water in Donetsk for several months. Now people are trying to cope by collecting rainwater. In the same temporarily occupied Donetsk, there is not only no water but also no fuel. Huge lines are standing at gas stations, and gas line is either given out with coupons or not given out at all. Dear viewers, thank you for watching this video. Give it a like and leave a comment. I will be grateful for your activity and communication. Take care. See you soon.